I'm a child being led through the world, and that world is like alive, doing crazy stuff. Here in the valley, I've been, like everyone, part of our group. I've been absorbing the extraordinary world that you've allowed us to enter into. That is the landscape of the Araucanía, how it came to be, what it was naturally and what it is now. I absorb, I listen, I look, I take 1,000 pictures.
The first weeks we were like doing all these trips with the whole group to get a bit of a sense of the valley, and also Conguillo National Park or Lonquimay, all these beautiful landscapes, and it's really an amazing way of exploring. You don't have to go so far, just go in the valley, and every day you explore more and you have a different feeling about it, and then you come back here, you work a bit on what you collected, you make some sketches. Before coming here, I was doing some research about a process which is called sensitive crystallization. It has been proven that music has an influence on this process, on the size of crystals, but also the patterns. So I'm interested in taking the resin from the araucaria, play the kultren, which is an instrument that are used by the Machis, and during the whole process, and see how the kultren has an influence on this small world of crystals.
I've been recording certain areas from different levels, so from the macro, like this really the satellite image perspective, to more of a bird's eye view using a drone, and then really on the ground with photography, and really microscopic, like really tiny. In my work, I hope to contrast the eucalyptus plantations to the vast wildness or uncontrolledness of the araucaria trees. So I started focusing more on a local scale as to how deforestation manifests in the social context here. For me, that's a kind of a symbolic dualism for the economy versus the ecology.
This area has a lot of biodiversity. It is so rich in species. It has been very inspiring to live here with the fungi, basically. That encounter to meet with a mushroom, it's a very unique moment because there has to be this all conditions of humidity and temperature, and for the mushroom to come out, it's basically a miracle.
For me, it starts with theoretical research. So I look into environmental issues, try to get as much information about the location, the context that I'm in. And then from that, usually some things stand out to me, which are usually connected to a place. And then I do field work, so I collect. I film, I photograph, I take samples.
My research is based on creating decolonized spaces for thinking, whereas at the same time, coming from this Western idea, this is a problematic ambition.
We are here in an environment where the indigenous people have been colonized their whole lives and for centuries. And the changes in the landscape are political decisions to build a dam, to push economic development through cutting down trees and planting new forests, which are not native to the area, with complete disregard of the people who live here.
From our Western reality, the sort of everything we know and we've learned, it has constructed our vision, our reality on what we see and how we see the world. There's a very big difference between our Western sort of reality and some of the indigenous realities I want to supposedly research. So researching that from this perspective, from this reality, is almost impossible, because you can't comprehend sort of the roots that these knowledges come from.
I think Valley of the Possible is a great place to think of the divide between human and nature that we've created and how to bridge that gap and what that means for the way we are living and current capitalist society and or ecological present and futures.
What is nature external from me, and why do I feel so good when I'm here in it, and why do I feel so constrained and angry when I'm away from it? You know, there are things that are visceral to us, that are sort of part of our being, that go back in, that are in our genes, our biology, that are connected to nature. Like, that's where we come from. Chemical accident.
We have to care about nature because we're part of it. You can't think that your living would not affect your environment. You're part of an ecosystem.
For me, I really felt like really connected to that tree. There was a lot of energy going on, and I found it really special we were able to do this, because you don't think I'm just walking in a forest and having a hike, but you feel connected somehow. You feel that there is something going on around you, so it's much more, you are more in symbiosis with the whole nature.
For me, going out and field recording is really meditative. It's very easy to just walk through the forest and be like, oh, there's nothing really here. So as soon as you get out your recorder, you will start hearing more. That really gets me in a meditative state, and then I really get a sense of place.
It feels like we're at this epic moment in human history. I think that when we're younger, or when we're children, we think that things are kind of eternal, like there's always going to be elephants, or there's always going to be polar bears, or there's always going to be glaciers, or there's always going to be savanna, or whatever it is. When we're children, we get these images of things. We read books, we do puzzles with pictures, and there's this world that we take for granted as existing, that will always exist, that has always existed. And then to come to realize that, well, none of this is permanent, that's a state of life, but it seems to be charged with a very powerful kind of moment of change right now.
In general, I care, and this is what drives me, to care and to understand, to not be afraid of the complexities of this world and the time that we live in, but to see it as an opening for something that allows reflection and change, to take some responsibility for being part of the European Western culture.
When I sit behind my computer, I can very often think that this is how the world works. But it isn't until you're really in that place that you realize how the dynamics of a space actually are.
What is the problem actually? The first step is to look at oneself. And what is the system that created the problems in the first place? What are the ways of thinking that created the problems in the first place?
Every day that marketer is playing to the part of your brain that controls your actions, and it's hard to gain back your own sense of self or your own free will when you're being marketed to buy, shit that's produced
You know, we are talking about hacking the system, but can we hack ourselves? You know, after that you understand that the system programming you, you know, could you hack yourself in order to hack the system?
I think that through this research, I became more Dutch than ever. Yeah, because I was confronted loads of times with my own sort of Western worldviews, which I do not really like, but it's also acceptance. I mean, this is where I come from, this is my construction, this is my sort of way of looking at the world.
I want to be much more activist than I am now. Like, art has this power to change society, so how we can send a substantial message, basically, with the work we're doing.
I never realized this. It's a pretty good metaphor of what is around us here, this constant symbiosis between human nature, of how we relate to our environments and how everything is influencing each other. And for me, that's what a residency is about.
For me, it's very clear. So not necessarily what the outcome will be, because that's a result of the process, but the steps and the story and all the content I get that during this month. And I'm very, very confident that there is so much to work with.
How do we generate a space to share and to work together and to really collaborate? Like, I'm hoping to work with these guys from the Comunidad Historia Mapuche and hopefully to come back here again, and hoping this will last, a relationship that will last. And I hope to the other participants the same, not to come and get their research and the investigations and then go and publish and that's it. We have to come back, like we're working on these subjects, and that's what I think that it has been the greatest struggle for all of us. It's like the reciprocal way we want the world to work, like we have to start at home.
But I think that, like, continuing to question, do we take, what do we give, where we should be within this natural landscape. As humans, as particular people here in this valley, in this moment, doing this work, that's the eternal question.